Would you please join me in saying thank you to our singers this evening under the direction. We are fortunate that we get to recognize a lot of groups. We recognize our athletic program, we recognize our equine and our agricultural teams, and we need to also recognize our fine arts. So we are so excited to have them tonight, and thank you so much for joining us. And we know that you would rather leave than sit through a board meeting. So thank you. You may stay, but you may leave. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Very good. Did a great job. Woo! Okay, yeah. Gotta get quiet.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this evening. As you might have noticed, we have not established a quorum. What we can do is we're going to delay the opening of the meeting until 6:15. At that point, if we do not have a quorum, we will cancel the meeting and reschedule. So 15 minutes for coffee, gossip, whatever appeals to you, and we'll be back in 15 minutes.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah. All righty. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're back, and we're a quorum. We have established one. Thank you, too, for driving at whatever speed it was to get you here. We appreciate it. Since we've established a quorum, the next thing would be, Sandy, do we have anybody that wishes to address the board? All righty. Third thing. Oh, by the way, Mr. Henderson is not here this evening, and the good news for him is he's not able to attend tonight's meeting because he is receiving an award from Sanger ISD for Paraprofessional of the Year. So we're very proud of Mr. Henderson. That said, it is time for Dr. Wallace to bring it to us.
Thank you. And Mr. Henderson was not aware of that award until an hour or so ago. And so he was planning to be here and called our office and said, well, I guess I have to go to this meeting, and his superintendent was trying to keep it a secret. And I don't think that worked out, but anyway. I would like to begin by saying, please forgive me because I have a lot to cover this evening. This may be possibly the longest chancellor's report I've ever given in my years as president, but we have a lot going on in the state, a lot going on locally, and that directly impacts the college, and I think I would be negligent not to inform each of you. But before we start into some of those things, I want to begin by asking Melinda Carroll to briefly come up, and our Vice Chancellor of Enrollment Management, to tell us about another national award given to NCTC. So if you would come up and tell us. You may have to hold your microphone. There you go. Yeah, you're good.
Okay. And I promise my report isn't, this is a presentation that we did at the Salesforce conference last week, but I do want to, had the opportunity to accept the award on behalf of the college at the Salesforce conference in Dallas this past week. But it was recognizing our Red River Promise accomplishments from fall of 2021 to 2022. And it was growing college enrollment in rural communities. And we were nominated because of our 67% college enrollment growth from our rural high school partners with our partnership with Economic Mobility Systems. And so I would like to recognize Barbara Stanley for her tremendous work, along with her team, Tanda Nash, Kinsey Osteen, Brittany Jarvis, Tom Foreman, and Jennifer Beal and the admissions team, because the award was Excellence in Recruitment and Admissions Innovation. So just very proud of that team and NCTC and Enrollment Management. So I know the other directors and managers are here, and then some other team members. So I'd like to just recognize that whole group. But congratulations, Barbara and the Red River Promise team.
Way to go.
Thank you, Melinda. And please, on behalf of all of us, thank you for your work being done with student success and your team and everyone here. This year alone, NCTC has been awarded 3 national recognitions. Those do not come lightly, and they are the first of national recognitions the college has received over its history. And so we're very proud of those 3 national awards. We do it for the right reason. We don't do it for the awards, and oftentimes those kind of institutions go unsung, but it's nice when our staff and faculty are able to be recognized. You know, earlier this year we had an English award, and we've had all sorts of great things going on, so congratulations. Several months ago, the Board of Regents was presented with data regarding the expansion of our work from home policy. At that time, you instructed me to further consider what areas could be expanded or not. After considering this and looking across the state at other community colleges' post-COVID policies, I've decided that we will not be expanding the work from home policy, but will continue to limit to the program to those that are currently in that model. And I just wanted to follow up with the board on that particular item. A few months back, you will remember my reporting to the board an economic overview for Cook County and an update on River Promise, including the top programs that the TWC, Texas Workforce Commission, has garnered as targeted fields for that area, for Cook County specifically. This evening, you will hear a report later that focuses a little bit more on some other things, but what I wanted to share with you this evening are the data points from Montague County, and then we'll be covering Graham Independent School District, and later on working on the data for Denton County. But I'm going to share some things with you real quickly Slide 1 is really a good overview of the population of Montague County and the fact that it's grown to 20,282 with a total regional employment of 5,921 and a median household income now of $57,000. That is a growth of jobs by 99 over the last 5 years, which is pretty remarkable considering that most of this is a rural-based county. There is no metroplex or large city population. They're expected, however, over the next 5 years to grow by at least 233 additional jobs. Concerning the data, that is, despite the growth in jobs, the median household income still is about $7,500 below the national average. The national average is $65,000, and we're seeing Montague County averaging a 57.5, 57.5. So that's an overview of that. We often look at the educational attainment slide and think that this is, and judge based on that. I would encourage you not to really judge. As with Cook County, you will see similar data trends in educational attainment, with 11.9% of Montague County residents possessing a bachelor's degree, which is 8.4% below the national average, but 9.8% hold an associate degree, which is above the national average. And I would say that that's proving that North Central Texas College is doing good work with our associate and certificate programs in Montague County. The next few slides are our Red River Promise numbers, and I'll go through those fairly briefly, but we've shown you these from Cook County. And I want you to pay special attention, if you would, at the scholarship application increase. They're feeling it. And then the retention is what's really be important for us. So first, 1 year to 1 year retention rate. So our first cohort really is coming into their second year and finishing, and that's exciting for us because you don't know how the program's going to work for long term. So you see an 88%, and I mind you, these are very small school districts where 1 or 2 students can have significant impact on the percentage. And so you'll see that a little later, but when you think of 1,700% there, Forestburg lost 1 student, that puts you down to 86%. That retention doesn't necessarily mean a lack of success. They could have gone ahead and transferred to their university of choice. They may have had a lot of dual credit when they came in and didn't require a full 2 years to complete, and so those are things there. We're excited again about the fact that they're applying for scholarships. Goldberg, a very small school district, but you look at this, you have a 40% attainment or retention rate. The FAFSA has increased greatly. Their applications have gone up considerably between our first cohort and second. That means college-going culture is becoming part of the norm. The conversation is growing around that, and that's important data for us to focus on. Nocona, same way, an increase of scholarship application, an increase of a good retention rate, and so very interesting there as well, 80% pledged. I would notice this, we have 100% of the new cohort for 22 pledged in Goldberg. You'll see some 100% from Forestburg. So we're seeing a really huge impact in our rural communities with Red River, and the more data we look at, the more we realize its success. You have Prairie Valley at 100% pledged, 100% retention rate, 100% enrollment, and 120 and 200% scholarships. Small population, but folks, we're making lifelong changes there. These are things where students are going to leave without any debt in a place where we've struggled, honestly, to get a college-going rate increased in Montague County. St. Joe, same category, 100% pledged. Continually successful. We lost 1 student, and that's very reasonable data, and a 600% increase in scholarship application. This is the overview. You're seeing the full slide kind of comparison. I think this is interesting. We have 30% almost of our students taking advantage of technical programs, and still 71% academic. Oftentimes they've started on the academic side through dual credit, and they continue that process, but we're even seeing some of our students slide from academic programs into technical as they get in and go, okay, what kind of career path do I really want? But very successful numbers there, and very proud of those. This slide, you'll see a trend analysis for labor force participation. Not a lot of movement considering the axis, if you look at, is not a big axis. You know, this isn't 1 to 60, this is 57 to 60. So relatively flat if you look at it from a statistical significance. But there's now an uptick in labor force participation over the last few months, and we're glad to see that trend beginning to increase. The next slide highlights population characteristics of the county, and a special note, the retiring soon risk is high for Montague County, and the diversity indicator is fairly low compared to the national average. The migration charts that we'll see in a moment, and you can look at those, I'll give you a minute. The migration chart's interesting because it shows a visual of where people are moving into Montague and where they're exiting Montague to go. So the red is where they exit, but there's an influx of Wise County, Denton County. We are finding a lot of folks moving out of very busy areas in order to find a quiet place to live. And they're buying, those land, and they're beginning to move into that. And so it's kind of interesting as you look at the data, say, wow, we've got a large population of folks moving from Tarrant County, and Dallas and Midland had one. So I bet that's one person. I'm just going to say. Interesting view there. The final few slides are pretty characteristics of what we're seeing. The largest industry that is currently in Montague County is government, retail, construction, and manufacturing. All the programs we're offering in some manner at the Bowie campus, you can fit into any of those with what we're currently offering from that campus, which is exciting as well. That being said, the top growing industries also align with programs on our campus. Interesting enough, we're starting to see a reduction of job growth in areas such as health science and agriculture, which is odd, where we still see considerable employment, though, in those areas. So it's not necessarily matching the top growing industry, but when you look at the employment data, you still see, very important to them, is healthcare, farming, fishing, and forestry, some of the programs we've offered historically in our rural campuses. So I think that's an important characteristic to look at. And then the final slide is just an overall view of the Red River Montague program and how successful it is. And again, my heartfelt congratulations to Melinda, and specifically also to Barbara and her team. They are hitting every day, every week, these ISDs, and we're seeing that retention. And more importantly, we're seeing an influx of students in our rural communities to our campuses. So thank you for your work there. Since our last board meeting, it's been a very eventful few weeks for community colleges and the Texas legislature. On Tuesday, Representative Gary Van Dever laid out House Bill 8 to full House for consideration. It was passed on a third reading by a vote of 145 to 1. At the request of Representative Van Dever, TAC developed important resources that were distributed to all House members prior to that vote, and that included letters of support from community colleges and each college profile for their representative. If you'll remember, I believe in our last meeting, you also adopted a resolution to support as a board House Bill 8 and its Senate equivalency. The engrossed version of House Bill 8 has now been received by the Senate, and work is taking place with the staff for Senator Brandon Creighton on the next steps for House Bill 8. We really expect the bill to move quickly over the next 2 weeks. There will be some technical amendments added, but the Senate side, but I will provide more information on those amendments as they come, but they're not risking any kind of major significance to the bill or its spirit. House Bill 1, the state's $303 billion biennium budget, passed out of the House on April 6th after a surprisingly mild evening of debate. We usually have a 3 a.m. Night that night, and they didn't. We monitored 27 budget riders that evening with potential impact to the colleges, including 2 that would have siphoned funds away from House Bill 8 contingency rider. I'm happy to report that none of those were adopted, and House Bill 8 contingency rider remains intact, which is what we needed to fully fund the $650 million for community colleges. Senate Bill 17 relating to diversity, equity, and inclusion was voted out of the Senate Subcommittee on Higher Education. The committee substitute scales back several provisions as it was filed in earlier versions, so I would leave you those examples. The committee substitute removes the requirement that an institution's governing board approve or deny the hiring of a CEO's cabinet-level position, something that you all voiced your lack of desire to do. It also removes the requirement that each institution's governing board approve or deny each course in the core curriculum. That has been removed. Among other things, the restrictions against establishing DEI offices remain in Senate Bill 17, but those are being restricted primarily to state-appropriated funds utilization for equity work, not to local tuition and fees or local revenue. Senate Bill 175, relating to lobbying by association representing political subdivisions such as NCTC, passed out of the Senate and has been referred to the House State Affairs. An amendment was added to Senate Bill 175 on the Senate floor, clarifies that full-time employees of an association like the Texas Association of Community Colleges, or one you belong to, the Community College Association of Texas Trustees, or TCCTA, funded by political subdivision, could still provide services such as bill analysis, testimony, and registering in support or opposition of legislation. So we really will see limited shift for community colleges associations that way. Of course, we will continue to monitor that bill as it moves through the House. I have been asked to testify Monday the 24th to the Higher Education Committee upon a request of Representative Howard in conjunction with Senator Colcourse regarding the nursing clinical site bill. And the restriction of for-profit colleges and universities from out of state getting preferential treatment for clinical spots. More to come on that. We're expecting a bigger conversation. Right now there's a concern that it's a local issue only for Victoria, in which the bill was filed. We now have data that proves that 33 of the 50 colleges in the state are suffering from clinical infringement from out-of-state entities. So we will be working on that testimony. On a local level, Dr. Van Miller and I provided testimony this last week at the Senate Higher Education Committee subcommittee by invitation of Senator Drew Springer regarding Senate Bill 1442 and the TSTC Denton County bill. The mayor of Louisville, along with the EDC director, testified in support of the bill, and the bill stands right now in committee. With permissions, Mr. Hayen, I would like to give an update, but I'm open for discussion with the board during any of this next stuff. If you have questions for me or you desire to make this process and clarifying anything, let me know as we go along. At your desk in a blue folder is a letter of concern offered to members of the legislature regarding TSTC, signed by myself, Chairman Metzler, and the president of the NCTC Foundation, Phil Neely. That gives you some details and the highlights I'm offering you this evening, but that is for you to look at it at your convenience. While we appreciate both the Senate Higher Education Subcommittee and the House Higher Education Committee's willingness to explore options of higher education for our region, we would like to express our continued concern and with the proposed expansion of Texas State Technical College as outlined in House Bill 3211 and Senate Bill 1442. North Central Texas College began serving Denton County in the mid-1970s and offers 60 academic and technical programs plus a wide variety of industry-recognized occupational skills awards. In particular, over the last 4 years, we have provided 104,000 enrollments and over 500 academic and technical courses, having awarded 12,843 credentials in Denton County to Denton County residents. The college has also built $60 million in facilities with no Denton County financial support for those facilities. In fact, we have been met with some criticism for not taxing Denton County. But it is important to understand that the current laws only allow for community colleges to tax by county or independent school district. The legislation also disallows you as a board from taxing outside of a legislative service area. NCTC currently has no ability to tax all of Denton County or any independent school district in which is shared by another community college system. It's important to emphasize the governing statute that created TSTC specifically states that their emphasis of each TSTC system campus shall be on advanced or emerging technology programs not commonly offered by public junior colleges, which is why we respectfully expressed our concerns regarding Senate Bill 1442. That is, programs mentioned by the communities considering TSTC are programs we already offer at NCTC. Some examples of duplicated programs mentioned by Texas State Technical College include welding, computer and information systems, cybersecurity, cosmetology, CDL, HVAC technicians, nursing, education, and several computer information technologies along with construction trades. TSTC's last fiscal year received $123 million of state appropriations and an additional $8.6 million in state-provided dollars for capital investment. NCTC received $11.4 million in state appropriations. TSTC has 2 full-time lobbyists paid by their foundation, a team of government relations staff, and a downtown corporate office in Austin to work directly on a daily basis with the legislature. Thus, in fact, this last week I was asked by a member of the House why NCTC does not have its own lobbyist. And I said, we don't do that with foundation dollars, but I was asked that question. Thus, I would respectfully suggest that at a time when the Texas legislature is poised to invest new money, much needed money, in state resources for our community colleges, and the TSTC system now, and it's time to pass any further workforce expansion at this point, and instead, I would argue we need to take a more strategic and deliberate approach to our state's workforce and CTE needs. This should involve taking the time needed during the coming interim, with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board at the table. Right now, the state is relying on demographic information provided by a former TWC employee that is now employed by Texas State Technical College as their own economist. We need to develop a comprehensive long-term plan with all the stakeholder input that we will ensure that we strategically invest state resources in areas of the state where they need providing and are lacking those provisions. This will also help ensure that we not create an undue burden on the state by replicating already existing programs with tax dollars. In closing, many people may ask why we worry about the infiltration of TSTC into Denton County. It is important to note that like many other comprehensive community colleges such as Blinn, South Plains, Cisco, Navarro, Paris, just to name a few, we all have larger out-of-district enrollments than we do in-district. The fact that we currently rely on the revenue from Denton County to pay for the facilities, faculty, and staff in that county. We have never, nor will we ever spend any funds generated by Cook County taxpayers or Graham independent taxpayers outside the county in which those funds are generated. No dollars have ever gone from Cook or Graham to Denton County. The contrary cannot be said. At the moment, the excess revenue from the student tuition and fees from Denton County are in fact supplementing costs throughout the district. Those dollars are the only flexible funds and sources given to the board that you have control over and can use in a number of ways. We're fortunate enough to see a leveling and in some cases an increase in Cook County high school graduation rate and graduates attending NCTC, with high school graduation rates that have been mostly flat over the last few years, between 17 and 21, according to TEA. As I mentioned before, Red River Promise is making significant positive impact on our college-going rates. In addition, as you're aware, we face an interesting dilemma in being the 3rd lowest tax rate in the state, with much smaller colleges having higher tax rates than we do. At the current trajectory, barring any oddity, the College Board will have to increase the effective rate to avoid going below the maintenance tax rate of 5 cents within 2 to 3 years. Translation, if the student population in Denton was to be decreased by TSTC's infringement and the revenues decreased and we have the lower tax rate, we stand to not fare as well as colleges as small as Frank Phillips and Clarendon College, who have enrollments in the 1,000 range and a 24 and 22 cent rate. In conclusion, I promise, to follow up on House Bill 8 and the new funding model and the work we have been doing, that I've been really involved in, honestly, and continue to work toward, I'm happy to say that the initial data runs show, because of our completion efforts, NCTC will receive $4.2 million of additional monies in state funds per year. This will be a partly split between operational money, TEOG increased grants, and the FAST, which has developed a dual credit model for compensation. At this point, we plan to come in the next year with a flat budget to verify these funds are truly going to come in the rate we believe in September before committing them. That's a lot to cover. It's been a busy legislative year, and we still have almost a month left. And so we'll continue to do what we need to do. But any questions from any of you on any of that information? It's a lot to absorb. There are 11 campuses now, and they serve just about the same number of students per year that NCTC does across the state. And all those have been paid up to this point by state monies for their expansion. I know that in one degree plan, for example, Debbie Huffman can give me the real numbers, and I just put her on the spot. She's probably going to kill me. For example, I looked at computer information technology graduation for us last year comparatively. And for what I remember, we had 83 graduates under that umbrella of CITE. Statewide, TSTC, I believe, had maybe 8. We're doing good work. Other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Wallace. Just anecdotally, I will tell you that about a month ago, Carla Metzler and myself and Brent spent the evening having dinner with Senator Springer and Representative Stuckey. And I cannot tell you the frustration of dealing with them for 2 hours trying to explain what Dr. Wallace just explained to blank stares. The fact that we are not funded for any of the buildings we get anywhere in this state for community colleges does not get through to them. So their anticipation of spending tens of millions of dollars on a facility for TSTC in Denton County, knowing full well how that would impact us, I just can't tell you how frustrating it was. We just left the place pulling our hair out. Well, sort of. It's amazing to me. So I'm not going to spend the evening moaning and groaning about that. Dr. Wallace did a wonderful job of explaining it to you and explaining, most importantly, how well this college does, and the fact that because it's performance-based, we're going to get more money. Hello, we're doing a great job. So that said, sorry, I don't want to pontificate, but so now we're on to informative reports. Dr. Miller.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Hayen. Tonight, I hope no one's disappointed, but for the first time in several meetings, I only have one set of monthly financials for you to review, and that's the March financial report. Honestly, there's nothing of significance that I wanted to make sure and go over with you, but of course, I'm always open to any questions that you may have. I would just say, if you look at the budget comparison, revenues, expenditures, you'll notice both revenues and expenditures are lower than they were at the same time last year. This is exactly what we expected. It's because of we're no longer receiving the government funds, the HERF dollars, we refer to them, COVID relief from the federal government. That kind of pushed our numbers up, both in receipts and on the spending side. And so that's coming back down this year as we expected to. I would take this moment as an opportunity to give you a little update on the tax notes that were authorized last month. Everything is moving ahead smoothly. We're actually expecting to receive those funds, I believe it's next Thursday the 27th. And so when we have our next monthly report at next month's meeting, we're going to add a new line under general and restricted funds on the statement of funds pages, and it will be a line that starts out with the $2.5 million that we'll be receiving, and I expect it'll take us 18 to 24 months probably before we expend all of those funds, but sorely needed, and we will begin immediately with the projects that need to be done with those notes.
Any questions from the board? Thank you, Dr. Miller.
Thank you.
Ms. Sharp.
It's always my pleasure to come and share good news from our quarterly external funding report. So I'm going to start with the foundation. Our total assets are $3.3 $13.3 million. It has been as much as 15, but we did something. We awarded scholarships, and it dropped our balance. But we have awarded 989 scholarships valued at over $633,000. And I also want to thank each of you for your attendance at the gala. I know I was so proud to see all of you there, and that we were able to induct 71 donors into our honor circle this year, as well as award the FM Hemphill Distinguished Alumni a scholarship to George Boros, and then we awarded the 4 Ed Wright Community Service recipients. And it's always a special evening to get to do that, but also just so great to see so many donors and supporters at this event. I want to say a special thank you, though, to Sandy Otto for all her work with WinStar, coordinating all that and the decorations. I can tell you from my perspective, it was so great. And Sandy, I just want to say thank you publicly for your help with that. Marketing and public relations, excited to say we are using a new platform for our website called Squarespace. In so doing, we also recognized that we needed to use a company that helped us do a search engine optimization. I knew I couldn't say that word, but basically helping us get additional Google hits. And so I can tell you that with their help, we've received 58 additional hits through our Google search. And so when someone now Googles NCTC or even some of our technical programs, it's pulling us to the top 3. So we're excited about that work that they're doing. They also conducted an email campaign for health science program. We had additional 27,000 hits to our website to go to our health science pages. And they also targeted 5 of our career technical education programs and had additional 28,000 hits. And so really trying to target our use of our website and making sure people can get that information from that. SBDC, I always am excited to brag about the work that they do to help small businesses be successful. They achieved their goal higher than they ever had. New business startups, 67, jobs created, 553, jobs supported, 2,693, capital infusion of over 32 million, and then they assisted 839 businesses. And Lori's with us this evening. I just want to say thank you, Lori, for all your work and your team. Appreciate that. This quarter with our grant programs, we were awarded 1 new grant. We submitted 3 additional programs, and we continually successfully implement 17 current grants at our federal and state level. We received $76,500 from the Student Success Acceleration Program grant. It's a partnership with UNT and Collin College. Found out today, talking with Donna, that we actually have already awarded $52,000 of those dollars. We can give a student that's graduating this spring $500 to help them be successful in graduating. And so I'm proud to say that 105 of the spring graduates received these funds. So it's just an incentive to make sure that they can complete their courses and graduate. You were in the boardroom meeting a couple months ago. Tamar Bell and Jared Ennis came and talked to us about the OER programs. Excited to say we're working on 5 other OER grants that are going to help us to expand our OE offerings for our students. And if y'all recall, that's going to help our students save money without having to purchase their textbooks. So really appreciate all the work. They're going to be doing courses in world literature, philosophy, music appreciation, and learning frameworks. And then they're also developing a digital course lab manual for microbiology for non-science majors. Those grants have been submitted, and we hope that they're funded because it's truly going to help our students not have to purchase those textbooks. And the last grant that they worked on this quarter is the Texas Workforce Commission High Demand Job Training Grant. This is for $300,000. It's a partnership with the Texhoma Workforce Board as well as the Gainesville Economic Development Board. Each of those entities would put in $150,000, and it's going to allow us, we're doing some megatronics, or will be doing some megatronics in the Champion Circle, being able to also do that here on the Gainesville campus. So we're hopeful about receiving that grant as well. And so, as you know, grants is a team effort. It takes lots of faculty and staff to give their expertise to write those grants. And so I want to thank all of those for their work in our grant programs, but also want to say thank you to Donna Updegrove and her leadership in making those grants happen. So any questions, happy to address those, but appreciate your support.
Thank you.
There was one young man that you all saw at the foundation gala that is in that highlighted in here, Brian. Brian went to Austin with us I just love his story, but I love the fact that he's like, I want to come back and teach at NCTC. So we're hoping once he gets to understand how much he can make as a welder, that he's willing to come back and teach, because that would be awesome.
All righty then, that brings us to the consent agenda. Any questions from the board on the items in the consent agenda? In that case, I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda. All right, seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Jen, I didn't even have to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Hand. Many of you probably remember that it was less than 2 years ago, back during the summer of 2021, we conducted an RFP for auditing services. We targeted our current auditor plus 3 or 4 other companies in the general vicinity that we were aware of that did these types of audits. And we actually just received one bid, and it was our current auditors, Schalk & Smith. So we re-upped with them on a 5-year contract. And last December, Judy Smith, I think, shocked all of us when she provided the audit results and said because of some changes there at their firm, they were no longer going to be able to conduct our audit. So after a mild heart attack on my part, started thinking, what direction do we go? Well, I reached out, honestly, to someone that I knew, because Lott Vernon is an accounting firm out of Temple, Texas. And when I went to Blinn 15 years ago, when I arrived there, Lott Vernon did their audits. I was somewhat surprised when I moved to Temple College. Guess who their auditor was? Lott Vernon of Temple. So I have experience, in fact, 11 years of experience working with Mr. Dane Legg, who is the lead auditor with that particular firm. But I think more important than the fact that I have had past work experience with them is the fact that when I asked for further information from Mr. Legg, he informed me they are actually performing audits right now for 5 community colleges in Texas. They perform audits for Blinn, for Central Texas College in Killeen, Hill College in Hillsboro, Temple, and Wharton Junior College. So, 5 out of 50. They've got 10% of the community colleges in Texas. And I can't overemphasize how reassuring that is to me that these auditors are familiar with the system of auditing for community colleges in Texas. Because there's some unusual things that we are mandated to do by the state. Our audits are somewhat unique as compared to even school districts and other entities across the state. So, as I said, I reached out to Lott Vernon. I was somewhat concerned. We're 3 hours away from Temple, and I thought, well, maybe they may not be interested because we're outside of their geographic region. And he quickly informed me, said, yes, you're 3 hours north of Temple, but he said Wharton is 3 hours south of Temple, and we've been doing Wharton for over 10 years. So he said that was not an issue, not a problem at all. The other concern that I had was, what would their charge be? And so when I asked for their proposal, and you see their what they sent me there, I will just let you know that the dollar amount that they are seeking for the first year of that audit is $600 less than what we paid for this year's audit. So it's most definitely in the realm of expectations of what we have been accustomed to. And so on behalf of the administration, I would ask for your approval to enter a 5-year contract for auditing services with Lott Vernon and Company of Temple, Texas. And I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
We went out several years ago. The board requested that we go out for a similar approach to just make sure that, you know, doing our due diligence. And I was shocked that we were able to get it at the price we are, because then we had some Dallas firms that were in the $100,000 range. So when we saw this, we were very shocked. But yeah, I mean, it's nice lateral kind of investment.
And just so y'all know, because these are professional services, we didn't have to do an RFP. We did it 2 years ago because it had been so long since we had had another auditor that we just thought we want to go do our due diligence and go through the process. But it's not a requirement, so that's why we just went out and sought their services to see if we could come to a mutual agreement.
Okay.
Remind me, Dr. Miller, for the board's purview, the federal regulations have greatly increased with
Yes.
GASB.
Yes.
This is an all-inclusive price for those new firms as well, because I believe that Schock and Smith had to actually maybe in contract or subcontract out a few things this year because of the complications of
They
that.
did. There was a GASB, the one that had to do with leases.
Leases, yeah.
They had to contract out some additional services to make those calculations.
Included in this one.
And we're still working with them to determine whether they are including that service or not.
Any other questions? In that case, I would entertain a motion to approve the contract for 5 years for professional auditing services with Lott, Vernon and Company. Okay. Second from Mr. Grimes. All in favor, acknowledge by saying aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Opposed? We have done it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. We have nothing to move into an executive session with, so we will not discuss any possible actions. That leaves us with announcements. Early voting for NCT Board of Regents election begins April 24th through the May the 2nd at the Gainesville Civic Center from 8 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. The election day is May the 6th. Polls open at 7 a.m., close at 7 p.m., and precinct voting locations are posted on the college website. And a new announcement. You have the TASB Update 44 at your place for your review. I assume that's us. No action is required at tonight's meeting. It will be brought back as an action item next month. Unfortunately, I did see that, so it'll be interesting reading. That being the case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Done. We be adjourned. All righty, guys. Thank you all very much for being here.